think we're all set. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Hi, everybody. I hope everyone had a good weekend and got done the things you need to get done and got at the places you need to get at. So, yeah, this was a fun weekend. I got a couple of things done. Oh, look at this. Right off the bat, we got a comment from Frank Salazar. Grab your hammer, your nails, and chainsaw, kids. We're trying out new tools and making comics. Thank you for that, Frank. It's very nice. This sounds far better than trying out new drawing tools in the studio, which is the one that I went with. So I should have put Frank's up. But thank you, Frank, for that. As per usual, anybody that's watching this video, if you have a one-page comic idea, you can put 1 or 2 sentences, put it here in the chat or in the comment section below the video. Okay, this has been a busy weekend for me, and I have not slept well, but we got some stuff done. Okay, so, musical choice of today, the album Malibu by Anderson .Paak. Really enjoy Anderson .Paak. Okay. Anyhow, this weekend, Friday, we left off with what I tried to do, a very limited page for the Werner Herzog suggestion. And where is my book? Where's the magic book? Okay, basically, for those that don't know, what I'm doing is that when people suggest a one-page comic idea to me, 1 page, 2 sentences, whatever. Okay, like a one-page idea, 1 sentence or 2 sentences, I'm sorry. Or just a sort of catchy title. What I do is I'm sorry, I'm too far away from the light. What I do is I sit down and I try to come up with a page, like this page here, and this is 1-page comic extravaganza, a book that I put out last year, and it has 40 of these 1-page ideas. This is a roving horde of vegan zombies. Here's another page about punk rock in the 1980s. Okay, here is The Treasure Was Not What I Expected. So it's all page after page after page of just here's a notion, go for it. Kaiju, rock, paper, scissors. It's all about just taking an idea and running with it. And that challenges me creatively. Now, in the mornings, I spend my time doing projects for other people. One of the latest ones that came out in last year is the Sasquatch book that came out for Tardigrade Press out of Ontario here in Canada. And waiting on the other ones to be published still. But Friday's suggestion of Werner Herzog came from Twinkle Pies. That was Twinkle Pie's suggestion, and that was from the live stream here. And then Monday's suggestion, which is the page that was posted at the beginning, of famous historical characters in a boxing contest, came from Paul Pate. And that is this one. Famous historical characters in a boxing contest. And so what I call this is famous boxing matches that didn't happen in history. And it's Laura Secord from Canada. Before Canada, actually. She died a year after Canada was made a country. And fighting against Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And, clearly not in the same lifetime. But that's why it's sort of a silly project. But it was just something fun to try. And to mess around with the idea of layering of panels. And the original pages, I drew the images onto sheets of paper, just in the heavy grade cardstock. And then I scanned those and assembled them in the Photoshoppy. Now, this weekend, I also did. So there's the Friday comic. Saturday was quotes from directors. And quotes from directors. And the following page that I posted on Sunday, I actually posted both of these pages on Sunday because Saturday I was doing stuff. Now, Saturday's page, when I'm working on different projects, I try to look for some encouraging insights from other makers of things that I enjoy. And then I quote 5 horror directors. Okay? And I say, maybe this will help you also. It's about process. It's about the act of making in and of itself. And I tend to like to hear those from people because they're always expressions they're always expressions of chaos. Okay. And the thing about that is that it's sort of, you know, you can hew together something out of madness, right? You can hew together some kind of carving out of just a block of wood, just some rough baser thing, and you can try to pull something out of it or pull something out of stone. You know, you've heard all these different analogies over the years and metaphors over the years of representing creation. But I just like looking at these from some of these horror directors that. But then the follow-up page on Sunday was, I do not like horror movies. I don't like them. And that's not to say I never watch them, but what I mean by that is, and I put into the comments of the pages as I posted them in social whatnots, I said, I think that horror today should be divided into two categories. And those two categories are basically horror and terror. And what I mean by that is, horror is, the psychological impact of fear itself, and the scaring you to scare you. It's the idea of the crazy. So the horror itself would be the over-the-top gore, splatter films, the crazy person chasing somebody with a knife or an axe or whatever. These sort of films that are it's all about just jump scares and the willies and how audacious can they be and how over the top or how bad can it be in its portrayals and in its characterization and in its acting, just in order just to get to the next splash gore, crazy whatever, whatnot. Whereas I think the classification for terror is like a subclass between horror and thrillers. That's where you have things like The Shining. That's where you have movies that, they're scary films, and they're clearly dealing with, they could talk about the cosmic horror genre, but I think even the cosmic horror genre has two aspects to it. There's some stuff that gets lumped in the cosmic horror are projects that are like dealing with the unknown. And I think that there's a lot to be said for those kinds of films. Those are the ones that I like. Those are the ones that scare the baloney out of me, as opposed to, the splatter gory sort of material. So anyways, this is a piece that I put out on Sunday, and I talk about why I don't like being scared, and I talk about fear. And, when you have a rough life growing up, you tend to want to not look for more rough things, unless, some people do, but, people sometimes wallow in the grief. And then today's page, which I switched, okay, I'm sorry, for the last two pages before that, these two different pages are from a number of sketch cards that I do. I just randomly draw on little bits of paper with whatever medium I have nearby while we're watching television or something. Different card stocks. I got some watercolor. I got some ballpoint. I got pens with me. I got whatever I got. And I'll just scribble on whatever scraps I find kicking around. And so these are roughly sketch card shaped and around that. So I thought, why don't I do something with some of these and start to fabricate some pages structuring these images and these ideas, or these images or these homages to living individuals whose material that I respect. So that's what these are. And that's what a previous page that I did was last weekend, which was the vampire dentist one. I'll pull it up. Here it is. This is the same thing. These are sketch cards that I've managed to format into a page. And I'm trying to change up the way that I'm going about doing this. So making each thing its own unique page in and of itself. That's the idea anyhow. So we're now at 42 pages. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that we're yeah. So this is good fun. So I've got a couple ideas on the docket for this week. And some of those ideas are as follows. I've got famous Remarriage and Dishes is a fun page coming up. That was suggested by Married to a Creative. Horror Monsters doing the Brady Bunch theme has been recommended by or suggested by Frank Salazar. I wrote him down as Frankie S. and confused myself. And then a showdown between Salt and Pepper. And so I think that's what we're going to crack on today, just because this is an older one that came from a fella just before I got caught up in a couple of other projects. So I'm going to try to go about getting this finished up. I did a really rough scribble of that, and just a rough scribble with a pencil, and laid it out really rudely and crudely. And, so I thought Joseph William McKay Barker is who gave me the suggestion. I haven't had a chance to get back to it. So I thought what I'd do is Salt and Pepper being traditionally black and white. I thought I would do the drawings of the two different characters. Now, here's some fun in the sun. Chris has got some new drawing things. Thanks to the advice of friend Dee Willingham suggested that I pick up some Posca white paint pens, which I did. Now, however, being easily tempted by the dark powers, I've also picked up a Copic brick white. I've picked up a Craftsmart white, and I've picked up a Deco Color white. Now, the Deco Color, to me, makes me question whether or not, so these are all produced by Acme, okay? All three of these materials specifically are all produced by the same company. What does that mean? I don't know. But there's different light fastness for each of these things. Now, I was testing it out. I've got, with one of my multiple sketchbooks I've got going at a time. So I was playing with this a little bit on this piece of paper. And what you can see in there is that this white section here compared to this white section here, compared to this white section, and then this fine line that's around that. That's the separation of those four different types of mark making tools, is that they have different degrees of solidity, different values to the white. And so what that tends to make me lean into is the fact that the Posca, which is an exciting fine point pen, the Deco is the next stage down. So this is the most solid white. This is the next stage down. And then we get into the Faber-Castell, which I've used before, and the Craftsmart. So I'm trying all these different tools in order to see which one gives me the strongest white value. And on top of that, which is the white value that can go over top of existing colors and marks. You know, you're kind of nerding out on making the pictures if you're going to this far with studying your materials. Anyhow, it's like the difference between the Laurentian white pencil crayon is very hard and it doesn't get very solid marks, but a sort of a light white, whereas the Prismacolors are a very solid and crisp and clean white. Whereas a wax pencil of white is just chunk, right? So the other one that I bought, this is the existing one I had, but the four new ones that I bought, this is the brick white. Brick white from Copic is pointless. It's almost like if it was on a white piece of paper, and we'll use this rough note here. If it's on a white piece of paper, brick white shows up in just this really dirty color that goes down your surface. Now, that has its uses, right? But it's sure not white. And it's a little bit disappointing that. I'm thinking, because I was excited and I was talking to the young lady at the art supply store, and I'm like, they have a white in Copic? I didn't think they did. And she goes, yeah. And then this is what I brought home. So not really white. because my idea was always that Copic stains paper, stains the surface. So I thought, how can you stain a surface with a white? You can't. Now, that's just not to say that I'm going to try a different Copic that's a white, professes to be a white that has a double side, but this is a finer one. The Copics are generally thicker. This is more of this size, the same as the Artist Loft. And, I made a mistake before buying a white from the Artist Loft, and it's a blender. So this isn't too far off of that. So that, you learn, right? Anyhow, so there's our rough notes, our rough sketch. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start knocking out some images. Now, today I'm drawing in reverse. So what I mean by drawing in reverse is I'll do this sometimes where I'll set up for myself the opportunity to draw the light as opposed to the dark. One of the things about something that's happened in my brain in the last so many years, and this might have something to do with system disorder that I have, but I see things as shape. I don't see things as line. And so with that in mind, I'll draw volumes around the lines as opposed to having to focus on breaking things down geometrically into the lines. It's a little silly and contrived and a little backwards. I get it, but it's it's just what I do. It's just one of the ways that I approach things. So I thought I would come at these with some of these light colors, and I was considering, and I might drop this notion, I'll be honest, but I was considering doing the pepper guy in the blacks. So all right, so so that's what we'll be doing. I don't know. I'm debating on that one as yet, so we'll see how that goes. But to start with, I want to do at least some of the stuff for the Salt character. There's a part of me that even considers that maybe what would work would be to sit down. I don't know how, is that picking up? It's picking up pretty nicely. Part of me is considering that maybe I do reverse imaging of the two characters, so that the white on the one guy facing left and the black on the other guy facing right. It's an idea. And the problem with that is that I can't just take the exact same image, scan it, and reverse it, because that will not work. Because if it's picking up the white, it's going to come out as black if it's just a reversal image. So I'd have to scan it and flip it and then try to pick up what is the paper value and convert that into the black line art. So we'll see. It's going to take a little bit of time, but so one of the things that I'm thinking of as I'm bringing up this character is that I'm thinking about how can I utilize all these different tools. If I'm bringing it up softly in this approach with this like pencil crayon, a lot more clarity than I can see it here, unless I lean right over top of it. The light, unfortunately, is bouncing it out for me, so sort of got to trust myself a little more than maybe I had intended. Can I change my way I'm sitting, or can I? Yes, of course, but then you can't see it, and it turns into a whole thing. I'm doing this for you folks. So as I put it up at the start of the stream today, I'll suggest it again. If you have a one-page comic idea that you can throw at me in a couple sentences, please feel free to do so. And we'll see what we can put together there. So I'm playing off the notion of good cowboy, bad cowboy, all the sort of stereotypes that this is the school teachers in love with the one fella, and
And then, of course, my story idea is to play against that. Now, initially, when I wrote the text for this page, I had wrote it as, your stereotypical little bit of business about good guy, bad guy. And I considered about saying, come on, before the season changes. And then I thought, well, before the wind changes would be funnier because there's salt and pepper. Oh, hurry, Sheriff Dan, there's a storm a-coming. And so here these two guys get ready, and as the wind blows through, it just kicks up all the salt and pepper in the air, and everybody just starts sneezing. So that was the initial thought towards it. But considering the opportunity that presents is, the guy all in white and the guy all in black, I thought maybe another idea towards it would be less of the opaque black and white versus each other idea, which has been done to absolute perfection over the course of years in the Spy versus Spy comics, cartoon bits. And so I thought, why don't we play on the notion of the black versus guy all in black versus a guy all in white. The guy all in black is traditionally in Western movies the bad guy. The guy all in white is traditionally in Western movies the good guy, who also sings a guitar on his horse and has maybe an awkwardly close relationship to his horse and never seems to commit to the potential relationship with the school teacher. These little weird little repeated little things that would happen in Westerns that I never quite understood as a kid. Probably still don't quite understand now. But so I had thought I could do that, or I can look at it as playing on the notion of actual salt and pepper, and which I come close to in the Dust Storm. But what about the fact that sodium's a killer? So how can I fit that into my story idea? So as I'm drawing, and I've got a rough layout of the interactions that I want to have, but I just want to round them out and flesh them out far more, especially visually. So the idea now, the part of process for me at this moment is to just sit down, start kicking together these pages, start kicking together these images. Well, I'm still further considering about, like I just said, story development. We're having hopefully things don't cut out today, but we are having a storm outside right now in London. So, come make a snowman. I'm so excited. Okay, so as I'm building up this value, you can see that I'm not actually drawing in the line art areas. I'm drawing the spaces behind those. So like I said, I hope people had a good weekend. A lot of busyness this weekend. Busyness is good. So one of the things that I would do if I'm just drawing in pencil crayon here is that pressure changes the value itself, right? And I'm drawing with that Laurentian, which, like I said, has a harder lead inside of it. So I'm pressing really lightly and just building up some of this composition. Just trying to carve things out, really. But the idea next would be to come in with the different paint pens and try to figure out something from there. And knowing that from this quick experiment that I did, that they've got different qualities to them, different opaqueness to them. I'll see. We'll take a look at it. but lots to do. Okay, so this is the Prismacolor. And I think that that's a much stronger white, and it pulls up much nicer. But I got me some new toys. So you can see how, oh, hi, Corbin. Some of those marks the mark that I put down here, it actually works out kind of nice, but it has a lot of body on the outside. So what can I do? So I'm just fixing my tip. Okay. So one of the things that I'll do is that if I put these little hits of value along the collar, if I tamp those down, it diffuses them a little bit, softens them out. Same there. But really, really dusts them down, right? But this is the least opaque, the one that has the least light fastness to it. So this is kind of expected. Right? Whereas if I move up to the Posca pen, ooh, and I put the same mark down, you can see how solid that is. So that's clearly for the big highlight hits. Right? And it just allows a little more development in the composition by really giving some good, strong contrast. But like I said earlier, it's painting, or it's like painting and drawing the alternate. Now, the Faber-Castell that I had earlier, it's not much different than the Craftsmart, Shop Craftsmart. So it really doesn't give me much of anything. It's sort of similar, actually, to the way that Laurentian puts down marks. Now, the Decocolor, which is a chisel tip, not a great chisel tip, it's a 3, right? But if you're really careful with it, you can make it do some things it's not necessarily designed for. But it puts down some fair mid-range value. So, yeah. Anyhow, so that's building up the image and building up the characters of salt versus pepper. You know, put some highlights into that cheek. And so what I'm using is a craft paper cardstock, which is kind of nice and fun. And so I'm just tapping that out again, but you can see how it puts that nice build up enriched highlight on there. Yeah, so it's just sort of building up those planes of the face, right? Anyhow, let's just get our guy drawn in here. Now, the reason that I've used the craft paper for today's drawing is I'd considered doing light blue, you know, kind of a cowboy vibe, denim and all that. But what I went for instead was this approach, just so that it's just something different, something, you know, but at the same time, it sort of dusty, dust as being a major part of a lot of the cowboy western movies that they're in the part of the United States and prairies for Canadian cowboy films, which is a lot of arid area. So I'm thinking of it in the sense of the light areas, not the black lines. So I'm kind of leaving those out. And of course, you want to maintain perspective. You want to maintain that your shapes relate to one another. You want to maintain, the values moving throughout the image. Give it a little bit of attitude, a little bit of style. Have fun with it, right? So I think that the idea of what I put together this weekend with the sketch card images and formulating a page out of those is that I've got a ton of these images that I've done on different size random piece of paper. It's kind of like a warm-up activity for me, really. And so I've got upcoming pages like that for the next few weekends, anyways, of previously existing drawings and stuff like that we're going to do something together with all set of these set images. So trying to leave out voids for where those black lines would be. So that when the image is all finished, it's the value that's the base color of the paper that pulls up. Once it's scanned, it should scan really nicely. And I'm pressing very softly on the pencil that I'm drawing the image in with. I thought I'd come and hang out for an hour and a half. Got a bunch more work to get done. I didn't get a lot of things done this weekend because busy weekend, but I'll get back to it. A couple of due dates coming up and the like, so. All right. Okay, so the tricky part really in drawing like this is leaving out the black line, leaving out the deep shadow. Because you want to fill in the whole volume of the form. You want to fill in the entire structure of the image, but you can't. That's not how this approach works. Now, there's no hard, fast rule on how to go about drawing this way. Whatever works for a person is what works. But you can do really light white pencil and bring up the structure or someone, whatever it is that you're drawing. Or, you could just go for it straight. You don't even have to necessarily use the pencil. You can just go straight in with the paint markers. I tend to find a benefit in coming up from the pencil and working up slightly darker as I go. just because it affords me the ability to find more and more values, more and more colors in there. Just trying to get all that rounded out, right? Just looking to see how that looks in the monitor there. So then the trick is you got to sort of think about, without doing outlines, you got to think where those shadows are. They work this way. So we've got the two pockets with the buttons on them. Just coming together there. You know, and it's building a little more up. Ooh, we got somebody said, oh, Gary Hodges this afternoon. Good afternoon, Gary. Anybody that's tuning in, you're more than welcome to chat as well. And I hope I saw Gary did an Arizona art festival this weekend. Gary lives in Arizona, and was really excited to hear how that went. I'm really happy for him. Wish we had some good ones of those around here. I know we have TCAF, but TCAF is a very stylized one. Yeah, so like I said before, you can see the difference in the tone here from these Craft Smarts, from the tone here from the Posca pen. So if I bring this up and then direct it around with the tip of my finger, you know, I can get some different changes in the values there, which is a lot of fun, right? As soon as I come in with that Posca, ow. So just putting in some of these, building up some of these shapes in his face, giving him a little bit more structure there. But by building it up in these little layers, it's going to add sort of deepening white values to it. That's the idea. So this is the Deco Color, which is a chisel tip, like I said, but is a little more opaque. So when I come down with this one, unlike the Studio, or the Art Studio, whatever that type is called, the inexpensive one from Michaels, this guy has a little more oomph, a little more staying power. So I can get sharper lines in there with them without it being the distinct hardcore value of the Posca pen. I do like the Posca pen though. I especially like it, and the fact that it can go over, it looks to me like it can go over all kinds of previous existing marks from paint or from ink. I've tried it on a couple different things on a piece of paper, and I'm very, very excited. Look at me. I'm gleeful. So I'm building up these raised planes in the ear, as opposed to just drawing the entire ear down, right? And so I'm checking in the camera just to see how this is pulling up. Sorry about the blurring, but it's coming together pretty well. And it's letting the surface of the paper itself be the black line. So, which is a fun way to come at it, you know. But again, you have to sort of trust your line. You have to trust the flow around the page of the marks that you're making. And to sort of keep if you've got some resource you're using, a resource image, just sort of keep an eye on the shape and the form and the volumes and the relationship of scale. This is our arm, it comes to here, and our arm comes to here, and our hand goes there. Even we break down the division of our hand. You know, we've got the overlapping jacket. So, I mean, this is come in with the Posca. Posca, pasta. I don't know how it's said. So the Posca is so sharp and so crisp. I would suggest don't make it as a solid line, because that's not quite how the light works, right? So this deco color is sort of like an intermediate between that Posca, but it tamps down really easily, but at the same time holds the shape of the line as you put it down. So it's kind of like in the exploration and comparison between these different mark making materials that all do basically the same kind of a job, it's important to kind of understand those unique differences, but what opportunities those things present for us. Anyways, if anybody gets a chance, please go and check out Gary Hodges' site, DVSM, so that they can see his update, sort of letting you know how the cool approach to this convention, which is, you know, an arts festival, that he did this weekend in Arizona, and sounds really nice and exciting. Far more about creator based than collector based, and I got to tell you, that wins some points in my book. And without the pretense, a lot of art festivals are really pretentious. I'm going to be honest, and just that, you know, artisty kind of a vibe, right? Sort of enhancing some of the little textures, following those throughout the shape and form of the object. In this case, a denim jacket. Now, like I said earlier, the Faber-Castell, because it's a soft white line, we can try to build up some of our marks here, but in full truth, and you can see how they pick up in the camera, but in complete truth here, you're going to have to go over that spot X amount of times for that mark to stay there. Now, I'm using a big chisel tip, so it's with some care that I'm taking to put some of these marks down and really push them out and about. And it's tricky. It's tricky to do because, you know, look at it. I just made that smudge because it had a little bit too much juice. Oh, the other thing I forgot to show you is jelly rolls. Of course, jelly roll pens. Most people know jelly roll pens. They're a lot of fun. That's all right. I'm going to use that. I'm going to deny it as a mistake and embrace it as an opportunity, because one of the things I was going to get to in the later stage of drawing this guy, who is our salt character, is dust and smudging throughout his person and around his person to intimate that, you know, he's made of salt. I also want to have a panel where I show a close-up on his face where it shows his eyes, but rather than having black irises, I want to have play with that a little bit and have them be white. So just running some different values, levels of white, and smudging it throughout, and giving a lot more body to the jacket, so it's not just a staid solid black, solid white, right? Letting it have some juice, some guts. this is a bit of effort into a single page image. It's a bit of effort into drawing a comic. I'm sure that there's a lot more simplicity and ease in just drawing it as line art, or just drawing it, as a solid inked image, the flat ink, but I'm having fun. And sometimes that's what it's about. Okay, most times for me, that's what it's about. All right. So I gotta leave those out so that you can see which ones I'm referring to. Okay, so this is that Posca, like I'd mentioned. Oh, wait, no, I'm so sorry. I've got the Technicolor as the basically like third tier, right? And it does a pretty good job. The difference between this and the Posca is the Posca is so solidly white. So I'm just putting these raised surfaces in the folds on the jacket. Right? Just giving that arm some more character. So I know that's gross. I know. I realize it, but I'm just trying to get some of the paint off my. So what I like about how these paint markers work is that the jelly rolls, right? Okay. They tend to either be opaque or a flawed kind of opaque. And what I mean by that is it's either solid area of line if you've gone over it enough, or it's got the ridge, the cutting ridge in between. So it's being sparing with certain tools and more aggressive with others. So I'm throwing in some of those highlights on the pocket. There we go. Feeling good with that. So if anybody has any questions along that amount, anybody has any one-page comic suggestions they want to throw it along the way, you're more than welcome to do that too. We'll get them down in the book and get them this week. This is an older page suggestion, and I'm trying to catch up on some of those. Got busy with jobs for others, and personal. I wanted to get a couple of solid books done, which I'm pretty happy to say I did. And so back to doing some of these one-page guys, just I do all the finishing bits for those books. So you can see the nice, clean, and soft little line that comes in from the Jelly Roll pen, right? And I'm checking the image in the camera, and it's coming out pretty well. So I'm putting some of the little raised highlights because skin isn't perfect in one flat, solid image. We want to get some of these little highlighted raised surfaces. Which gives more body to the face. There we go. Yeah. Thinking about how light works, the surfaces. I'm feeling good about progress on the projects that I'm working on. The grandkids, the two oldest grandkids, stopped by this weekend. They were trying to count how many things I've done since the start of the year, and I really had to look it up because it's just been really, really busy time. Things, unfortunately, I can't show everybody because, they're for somebody, right? Like they're for publishers, and I get in trouble. So I'm excited. I feel like this is the year where, I'm going to get opportunities to talk to people outside of on here, or the opportunity to work with somebody else doing the publishing stuff, so I can focus on the creative stuff and not having to go through the whole publishing rigmarole. Well, I've got a couple of those things on the way now, but I mean more of it, right? It's a nice feeling when you feel like you're at a good place creatively. So I'm really appreciative of the support I've been getting from people, and the encouragement. It's been really nice. So I'm going to sing you a special song today. No, I'm not. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. See, I've gotten overly particular about certain spots, but so you can see how the Jelly Roll white along the line of the collar isn't as solid as the Posca. There's a slight lightening of that. And then it's most opaque. And so, and as I'm drawing this long line of the edge of the shirt that follows through. I don't know, you can't really tell because I'm wearing a black shirt. It's not on camera. So where your buttons are, this raised line right here is what I'm trying to put down. The little textures, the little things that tells the eye that this is real. This is how we recognize this to be. So if anybody has any good salt jokes, let me know. So I'm leaving that small space in between this white plane and this white plane, so that can be where as you see it and it's negative, it's where the black line is. So what do we got? Some Anonymous, great name, says, looks great. Thanks very much. I have some of these pens, but I have only used them for toy customizing. There's so many things that are you talking about a specific brand? Because I'd be interested about which specific brand that you're using, Anonymous. Because there's different uses. I think that there's quite different applications for a lot of these. Like there's there's two other whites that I have. Let me see if I can. There we go. This is a black. Yeah, here we go. This is a acrylic paint marker. The Shake. It's called a Shake. Marqueur peinture acrylique. And then you've got your regular Jelly Roll. But there's so many different things that we can pick and choose from to utilize. So, which the Sharpie? Nice. Now, is the Sharpie, is that the Posca? Is that what you're referring to? Because I think that if you're looking for a really translucent one, this one's great, the Craft Smart. If you're looking for a decent white paint pen, the Deco Color is good. It's got that chisel tip. Looking for a really, really strong white with the point. A pointed tip like a Sharpie. This Posca's the kick in it. They all have their own different benefits. This is similar to the Posca, this acrylic paint marker from the Studio series. I found a set of these in Sarnia, Ontario, close to the States. And it's also got a really nice tip to it. But the challenge, of course, with these is that I've got some use out of them. But it's a Sharpie tip as well. So it has the same. I'll show you. it's got some of the same level of mark as a Posca. The problem with it is that it's drying out. But this is not white. This is the Copic. What are we at? We're at now. And this is, I think, the Uniball, which is it's interesting which companies are making which projects or which products. I'm sorry. The Uniball is also a Uni, and I have to wonder that's the same company entirely, but they make a really strong pigment. So, because the Uniball white pen is better than the Jelly Roll, it's more solid. That's up with the custom stuff you're doing there, Anonymous. I love customing. I did there's a thing called HeroClix that are these sort of miniature tabletop playing miniature characters for you to use in these combat scenarios on maps. Superheroes, Star Trek, all kinds of different things. And I did a lead that now DC Comics in there. HeroClix figures, they started releasing a whole bunch of the Legion of Superheroes, which is my favorite comic book from since my childhood. But they only had certain guys done, and the Legion is since it was invented in '58, much like the X-Men, for just volume of characters. So I sat down and made the 96 different principal characters into to HeroClix versions. So, yep. It ended up being customizing a lot of people. But I painted them all with really fine acrylic because I don't have model paints or the like. Okay, like I said, I fell back into that guy. That guy's not good. See how this is so much faster and more effective than the layering of value that it puts down, or allows me to put down. You gotta keep that tip of your finger somewhat clean. That's the pins that I got. Unintentional Amazon plug. There you go. So you can see the thickness of the tip here. That's with the lightest touch of it, because the thicker touch, I get a thicker amount of pigment. But so this is a lot of fun. I usually say this when I'm doing a page like this. I'll really focus on the principal images of the main characters through the page, and then any of those deeper shots, those images of the characters are far away. It's you have the benefit of being able to simplify at that point. But when it comes to that initial shot, that close up, that tight image, that character establishing image, you want to be something solid. Anonymous says, I find customizing to be something I can do in front of the TV, when I'm not knitting. I hear that. A lot of knitters around me. In a weird way, the cowboy in some kind of way looks like Elvis Presley. Like the kids like it, that guy. All right. Put a different album on. It's good to find the facility to be able to do something. The pages that I posted this weekend of the I do not like horror movies, and the movie directors pages that I put out on Sunday for Saturday, Sunday. Those are sketch cards, so they're all images that are about this big that I pull in my lap in front of the television. So while watching whatever I'm watching, so I've got a lot of them, and at this point, I'm now just assembling pages out of them. But I when people make purchases of my books online, pardon me, I sent him a sketch card as well. It's a secret surprise. Not that secret, I guess, but there we go. Got to be careful. The lids here are not in any way, shape, or form forgiving if you push the tip of your pen into the wrong end of the lid, which is rough. Just a little wrenching. Okay, so this is based on, where I've got this shoulder and arms where it's telling me this one needs to go. Now I can make some choices along the way, of course, about, some of the folds and the direction and how that image is coming together. But for the most part, I've got to just make sure, at the very least, I've got a equal value of scaling to the arm and my perspective, my form, my proportions, form are all on the money. Best I can. You make a mistake, yeah. Don't get it quite right, just keep moving on. Trying to get a little bit of a leather vibe here on the jacket, so. Finding some of those textures, finding some of those shapes. Pressing down softly for the most part, right? Bring up those values. Another thing that you can do for yourself in order to have a better sense of the character in relation to the space around them is, and I'm just going to jump over to here for a second just to get this down, because, usually do an hour and a half, right? I don't want to leave this loose and not get this finished. Now, when you're putting your image down, sometimes using negative space for your shapes is just as valid as using positive space. So you can do contour around the surface representation of the character themselves. So if you do this little contour line, it sort of defines an outlined. Now don't press too hard, right? Because you want to build this up like everything else. But as soon as you start to define that space around them, it sort of enables you to have a clear idea of what you're doing, where you're heading in your drawing. That's great. I can hear the wah-wah pedal. You ever listen to, there's a film called Dead Man by Jim Jarmusch. It's kind of a cowboy thing with that Jonathan Depp guy. Anyways, the entire soundtrack is by Neil Young. So you can just crazy guitar sounds through the whole thing. So I've jumped the shark a little bit on the hat, and I'm just going right to the pen as opposed to going into the pencil crayon, which may be a mistake. It might be, but we'll see. I want to get that solid white good guy hat in here. Cowboy hats are one of those things that are consistently perplexing shapes. If you're good with drawing them, okay. But if you're trying to figure out how to draw one, yeah, that could be really, disruptive. There we go. So what I've done is I've gone to the exterior part of where his hair is and so forth. I'll deal with the hair in a moment. First, we're dealing with the hat. There we go. It's a big hat. Maybe egregiously big. Yeah, probably egregiously big. It's more like Musketeer's hat the way I've done it. That's all right. We'll figure it out as we go. Okay, here I am using this Univel for this again, and I've got some fun new toys. Of course, using the paint pens on paper, it's a bit chunky. There we go. This is the kind of guy who walks up to a bar and says, "Sarsaparilla Man." Yes, authentic Native American actor Jonathan Depp. He plays an accountant in this. He doesn't actually play a native guy. That's the Wild Wild West or whatever crap. No, this one, Dead Man, is where he plays an accountant who has going across the country to work for some rancher, and it turns out that it's all bad bunch, and he immediately discovers their corruption, and he's a dead man. You're going to kill him. And the best part of it is that his character's name is William Blake, and an actual Native American actor that's in it, because he read William Blake, and Johnny Depp's character is reminiscent of the pen and ink drawing of William Blake that's in the book that he read. He thinks it's actually William Blake himself's spirit that's come back to help guide him through a hard time. So it's really, but you have this place to go to, William Blake, and I'll take you there. It's so fantastic. But it's got a crazy soundtrack. Absolute crazy soundtrack. Said, take that out. So I'm bringing that line in from where it was. There we go. And then back in with this deco color, which I'm pretty solidly believing at this point that these are all, because these all have the same product company name on them. These are just different qualities of the same, absolute same mix and ink. And there we go. All right. Yeah, he's not the John. Sorry, I let that up there. Big 11 gallon. Yeah. Johnny Depp is not the real, really, although he's supposed to be the main character, he's so overshadowed by the other actors. It's but if you don't, if you've never seen a Jim Jarmusch film before, they're interesting. Sarsaparilla, ma'am. Yeah. See, now that once those heavy contrasting values start going down, it becomes harder and harder to bring it up from the lighter tone. I find that I just want to just jump ahead and get into those darker values, you know. There we go. Yeah, which picks up much more clearly defined in the finished or the image in the camera. Thank you very much. Than it does from how I can see it. I'm having to look back into the camera because it picks up far better the differentiation in the values in the whites, like how much the image of the white is being picked up is so much darker in the frame than it is in my specific eye, but far more in my mind's eye and how I initially conceived it. So that's a benefit in that regard, but a bit of a challenge in the execution parts. So we'll work in some of these differences here. Now, bearing in mind, I do have a tendency of drawing something soft and trying to be very careful with my line work and then scribbling over it as part of the. I don't know why, but I do that. So I'm restraining myself today. But we've pulled in this negative space by just simply not putting lines down on it, right? So I've got some crisp parts of this belt buckle, and I've got some diffused parts or tamped down parts with my fingertip here. Trying to change up the clarity of the shape, the tone, you can see how it just changes it around as it goes. Get those crisp lines and those softened lines in the same environment. Gives a sense of focus. There we go. Yeah. So I've got some of these lines defining folds in a shirt. Just dropping and throwing, pushing that value around. Hopefully changing a sense of texture about this shirt than the jacket around it. Just a little slight change. There we go. So hopefully people can pick up on the difference of the two. go. Yeah, I think it's coming across there. So this is it takes a little bit more time to draw, the spaces around, the spaces between the line art. It does to actually just do it as line art, of course, but there's a lot of similarities in the approach. So. But got a few more minutes. Let's check one more. See if I got one more white here. Yeah, like this is one of these. Trying to think of the name of the brand, but when you buy these square-shaped pencil crayons, is that I find that they never really have any real value to putting mark in. Whereas, here we go. Here we go. So this is a Prismacolor. And the amount that it puts down a white mark as in comparison to the others is noticeable. It's like it's still building it up. It's still a craft paper you're drawing on top of, but you can still see it's there. As opposed to some of these other pencil crayons that just sort of fade out. There we go. So you can see how it changes up on the sleeves here for sure. Gives you your highlights, which is kind of nice. Starts to give form and volume and movement to the arm. Do the same thing in the hands. Throwing down some of the knuckles. Yeah, I gotta say, so having picked up these different pens, the Posca's really working out as a solid value. And then it's sort of like just a degrading slope at that point for, the different kinds of white pens that I've been collating over time. So you can see how this white pencil crayon has far more opacity than the previous one, so I can start putting in some of these marks that I need to do that sit on top of the other one, and yet they hold up so much more value to them. Allows me to do some of those background details, but because they're not as crisp as the foreground image values, like some of these little sharp points throughout his outfit and his big hat, it pushes those marks back and pulls his body forward. So optimally it's pushing it back so that it looks like he's in the scene, he's in this scenario. So that's the theory. But the salt and pepper page that I'm doing is going to be it's going to have a fun angle to it, I hope, and make a play on the good cowboy, bad cowboy nonsense. I know a lot of people like cowboys, but when I'm talking about nonsense. I'm sorry, I just got distracted by something. Yeah, I completely lost my point. I'm terribly sorry. Basically, I want to make sure that this character is in the foreground. The image is pushed back. If I diffuse the light by having an entirely softer approach to the background and not really clearly defined lines or sharp shapes, then ideally that should seem like it's an out of focus part of an image. Maybe, but it's literally just taking all of these different things and separating them out. But thank you again, Dee Dee, for the recommendation to use the Posca, because quite honestly, it is a powerful white, powerful. So appreciate that. But you're getting to be pretty dorky when you can tell the difference of quality and the different kinds of pencil crayons you have. So it's, yeah. You're an artsy fartsy type if you got that stuff figured out. So the only thing that I haven't really shown in here is things like, using some acrylic or using some watercolor or using some ink. There's all kinds of different effects you can get with all those things. This is just me trying to just play around with some pens. That's all. Just trying to get there and explore and find some different things and different ways of making some textures. And so even though I'm doing some patterning like in here, it's still muted down a little bit, right? Yeah, Chris, that's right. I'm sorry, I never am really aware of anybody's people are chatting. Feel free to chat too, by the way. You're more than welcome to do so, folks. So I'm bleeding over the edge. I'm okay with that because I'm going to scan. If it was a flat, static comic page with everything to scale, that'd be one thing. But with the way that I'm approaching this is that I'm going to bleed some of this edge out so that I can scan it in and then use those pages too. So then I can sit down and get some nice soft values going through here. Oh, I'm missing stuff. I'm so sorry. Those Laurentian pencil crayons my generation are nostalgic for sucked. Sorry, somebody had to say it. I think the Laurentian pencil crayons were the cheapest pencil crayons you could find at like department stores. I think that's why they were such a prominent thing. There's it's an interesting thing when you go in an art supply store and you see these different pencil crayon sets and the wildly varying prices that are on them. And the challenge I always have with that is, unless they have sample sticks out for people to try, you still don't know what you're spending X amount of dollars on X amount of box on, unless they say things like creamy, in the description of it. And even then, look, you're not entirely sure, right? But over time, people will test out different things and discover different pencils that are working for them, and there they go, right? They're off and running. But it's tricky. It's a tricky, challenging thing. So I don't know. I try a little bit of everything. Clearly I do. I'm kind of any tool I come across, let's give it a go. And, I tend to think that the heaviest amount, the most opaque amount of color comes down from the Prismacolors, though, folks. Okay, so here I am on these fine lines. Just want to get this down our time today. So I'm just
soft marks, little marks, as I'm trying to bring up some of these things and some of these little shapes in his face. Now, I just want to test this because I want to make sure it's not too... Yeah, see, it's the problem with the Posca pen here is that it lets you have so much pigment that you're going to put a dollop of pigment on the surface, and that's not necessarily going to help us out. So if I come down with this jelly won't, it's not as bad. Let's let some of these lines in here. Build up some of this definition in the face a little bit. Explore that. But there we go. So we got a little bit more definition in that face. What are we at? 126. So all said and done, this is the way that I would grade the level of opacity in these pens. Okay, I'm going to drop that. It's actually both. They're both uni here, and then it comes. And don't buy this. This is junk. See, this guy would have fit in there, and then when it comes to pencils, that's the Prismacolor. So that'd be our top. So these are we're going from most opaque to least opaque here, okay? And then this is a similar to Prismacolor but off-brand, and then you get into your Laurentian, and then you get into these junk things or stores that are with these pentagonal or octagonal shapes on them. Now, I picked up some pencil crayons recently from a dollar store, and they're triangular shaped, and they're really nice. They're really nice, and they're really creamy. I would actually put that, rather than pulling out that set, I would actually put that set in here. And you can find them in, I think they're 12 packs, 18 packs. I don't know what the number of pencils it is per metal tin, but they're about $4 for a tin. And if you find the 4 different tins that are sold through these different dollar stores, you have an entire 72 pencil crayon set. And they're really nice. It's an incredible quality pencil crayon that you're going to find at an inexpensive location. The only other mark making tool I'm going to add to our list is a grease pencil or a wax pencil, or however you want to call that. Because the opacity of that, it's like a crayon, but the difference of a crayon, I put a white crayon, all the way at the opposite end because it's more wax than it is pigment. Chalks and charcoals, of course, would be at this end, as long as you've got a way to make them stick to the surface and stay there, and like I said, the triangular pencil crayon set, and I'm sorry, hold on a sec, I'll see if I can. This is the Studio series. These are a nice pencil crayon set for really reduced amount of monies. So if you find those, try those out because on a budget, because they're really healthy. But this would be the most opaque, and this would be the opposite side would be the least. So we've got the Posca, we've got the Uniball White, we've got the acrylic paint marker from from Shake. We've got the Prismacolor. We've got the Deco Color, which is clearly produced by the same people that make the Posca and the Uniball. It's just a less opaque. And then we've got your imitation Prisma, your Jelly Roll, this is your Faber-Castell that you can find at places like Michael's or the like. Then you've got your Laurentian, good old sucky Laurentians, but many a childhood project done with those. They break really easily, by the way, as well. Craft Smart, this is your Michael's brand, and they're somewhat translucent. Then you've got these octagonal pencils that you used to find at dollar stores and the like, or like if you see a set of pencil crayons at Walmart that are $10 and there's a set of the same amount of pencil crayons that are $5, that's probably these things.
And then this is the Copic Brick White, which is not white in any way, shape, or form of it. And I kind of figured that, but I wanted to buy one and test it out anyhow. So that's the spread, folks. That's trying to take a look at all the different whites, mark making tools that I have at my quick disposal, and playing with some of the different things that we can start to put together when you're drawing in reverse. So I hope that this was of interest to somebody and help somebody out. So I'm going to finish this page off. This is the showdown between the salt and pepper. High noon showdown between salt and pepper. Salt and pepper about to have a shootout. That's what it's called. I'm so sorry. And so we'll have this posted for tomorrow. And tomorrow I've got a Universal Horror Monsters or Classic Horror Monsters as a Brady Bunch. To the Brady Bunch theme or presentation. So that's going to be fun. I'm going to draw a lot of those old black and white guys. What I'm going to use for that, I think maybe some inks and crayons. I don't know. We're going to play, but as I usually do. But that's about it for today. It's been about an hour and a half. Thanks to anybody for joining in with. I hope that some of this stuff has been of help. And if there's any questions that anybody has, feel free to put them in the comments for the video. If anybody has a one-page comic suggestion, where are we? There we are. If you have a one-page comic idea that you can put in 1 or 2 sentences, put it in chat while we're doing the videos, or put it in the comment section below the videos. And thanks very much for hanging out. I will see you tomorrow. In the meantime, keep on creating. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Bye for now.